There is a sentence that has echoed through recovery rooms for decades. It comes from the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, where members often repeat the idea that acceptance is the answer. Not because life suddenly becomes easy or because pain disappears, but because resistance often keeps us stuck in battles we cannot win. Today, we are going to talk about acceptance and forgiveness, not as cliches or slogans, but as practical tools for staying substance free, grounded, and aligned with who you want to become. Let's begin with a simple question. What does acceptance actually look like? Acceptance is not passive. It is not pretending that something did not hurt. It is not shrugging your shoulders and saying, it is what it is, while suppressing how you feel. Acceptance is the full acknowledgement of reality, including the nuances. It means recognizing the situation in its entirety. Your role, the roles of others, the intentions involved, the outcomes that resulted. There is a difference between acknowledgement and acceptance. You can acknowledge something at face value and still resist it internally. You can say, yes, that happened, while continuing to argue with it in your mind. Acceptance goes deeper. It says, this is what happened, this is what is, now what am I going to do with that? In recovery, acceptance prevents the buildup of resentment. And resentment is not a small thing. In 12-step communities, resentment is often described as one of the most dangerous emotional states for someone trying to stay sober. Not because anger is wrong, but because unresolved resentment quietly fuels bitterness, self-justification, and emotional relapse. Forgiveness sits right beside acceptance. Forgiveness is the slow process of changing your emotional response to the past. It does not excuse behavior, nor does it erase consequences. It does not demand that you restore trust where trust has been broken. Forgiveness is an internal shift. It is the decision to stop rehearsing the pain and start moving forward. Resentment is when you repeatedly feel emotional pain towards a person, place, or thing from the past. It hurts you, often far more than it affects the subject of your resentment. In that sense, forgiveness becomes an act of self-compassion. You are releasing yourself from the grip of repeated emotional injury. And then there's the piece that many people find the hardest: self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is critical for dealing with shame. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt says, I did something that does not align with my values. When you practice self-forgiveness, you acknowledge the impact of your actions while still treating yourself as a whole human being. Every single one of us occasionally acts in ways that are counter to our values. The guilt that follows is proof that your values matter. Acceptance allows you to say, yes, that happened. Yes, it caused harm. And I'm still committed to living differently. Now let's talk about the benefits of acceptance. Acceptance builds accountability. When you stop denying or minimizing reality, you see yourself more clearly. Clarity strengthens responsibility, and responsibility strengthens growth. Acceptance reduces stress. Fighting battles you cannot win drains your nervous system. Learning to distinguish between what you can change and what you cannot change allows you to conserve energy for meaningful action. Acceptance strengthens mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of observing without immediately reacting. Acceptance deepens that skill. You begin to notice discomfort without scrambling to escape it. Acceptance increases resilience. Life will present situations beyond your control. When you practice accepting reality rather than resisting it, you become more adaptable. You tend to bend rather than break. Acceptance creates momentum. When you stop replaying the past or fighting what cannot be undone, you free up space to move forward. And perhaps most importantly, acceptance helps you live in alignment with your values. It combats that uncomfortable feeling of dissonance when something does not sit right with you, but you pretend otherwise. Acceptance allows you to say, this is not aligned with my values. I acknowledge it, and I am choosing to live differently. So, how do you practice acceptance? Well, it doesn't happen overnight or in one grand gesture. You build it through small, repeated actions. You learn to sit with mild discomfort. You start small, letting something be slightly imperfect. allowing a minor frustration to exist without immediately correcting it. Training your nervous system to tolerate discomfort without escalation. You use imagination. Ask yourself, if I truly accepted this situation, how would I behave? Then experiment with acting in that way. Often behavior shifts before emotion does. You journal. Writing forces clarity. Putting your thoughts on paper makes acceptance tangible. It organizes the nuance and slows the mind. For some, prayer is powerful. Connecting to something greater than yourself reinforces humility. It reminds you that control is limited. In recovery communities like Alcoholics Anonymous, surrendering control to a higher power is often intertwined with acceptance. It's not surrendering effort, it's surrendering illusion. Counseling is another path. There are entire therapeutic models built around acceptance because it is that transformative. A trained professional can help you explore the nuance of what feels unacceptable and guide you toward integration rather than avoidance. In the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a well-known reflection that when we stop living in the problem and begin living in the answer, something shifts. The compulsion weakens, serenity increases. The focus moves from changing the world to adjusting our own attitudes. That does not mean injustice is acceptable. It means reality must be acknowledged before it can be responded to wisely. Acceptance is strength in action. Forgiveness is wisdom in motion. Self-forgiveness is the courage to grow. Together, they create freedom. Freedom from the endless argument with the past, freedom from resentment that clouds the present, freedom to move forward with clarity, humility, and strength. And in recovery, that freedom is not optional. It is foundational.